ADHD Rewired, episode number 43. This is the show designed to help those of us who have really good intentions and a slightly wandering attention. My name is Eric Tivers. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, coach, and consultant. We know that starting could be the hardest part, so let's get started. But first, let me thank my sponsor. Make 2015 your most productive year yet by joining the next ADHD Rewired coaching and accountability group. Let me know you're ready to get your ADHD Rewired by going to ADHDrewired.com and click the Rewired coaching bar at the top of the page. That's ADHDrewired.com. Welcome back to another episode of ADHD Rewired. Today's show is a solo episode because I want to talk to you about having the best year yet. What I want to ask you is, how was your 2014? Did you achieve everything you wanted to? Did you have goals for yourself? As you look back on this year, if you wrote out goals for 2014, now's a great time to take a look at them. Take a look and ask yourself, what did you accomplish? What did you make progress on? And what stayed stuck in your head? Now, if you've never set annual goals, this episode is definitely for you. And if you do set annual goals, then you are in store for a great episode. This, I think, is going to be one of those episodes that you go back to and listen to more than once, because I'm going to walk you through the steps and the processes we can take to make 2015 the best year yet. Now, you've heard me talk over and over again on this podcast about the theme of failing forward, and if we allow it to, failure can be our best teacher, but so too can our successes. I cannot overemphasize the importance of reflection to help us repeat what works and to learn from what didn't. Ever since I really began to manage my ADHD, when I realized that if I'm going to create the life that I want for myself instead of the life of missed opportunities, unmet potential, and living with that nagging sense of guilt and shame about all the things that I intended on doing but didn't, I made the decision that no matter how challenging it might seem, that I could do better. Through the process of annual reflection, or whenever my mind wanders to days long ago, I look back and I see that I really have come a really long way. It's funny, over the last 5 or 6 years, it was right after I was laid off and then I started my own practice. What I've noticed is that my thoughts have shifted from, I don't know how I'm going to do what I'm going to do, but I know I'm going to do it, to, wow, I can't believe I'm actually doing this, to, wow, look what I've done. All right, what's next? As cliche as this might sound, there is nothing that can build confidence in our ability to achieve like achieving. I'm really excited about what I'm about to share with you in this episode. I know it's been a while since I've had an episode where it was just me, so if you can't stand the sound of my voice, you can stop this podcast now and just go to my website and see an outline of this episode. While you're there, if you want to be invited to one of my 2 free webinars that will be coming up in the next few weeks, just share with me your email address at my website, erictivers.com, and you will be added to my VIP list. That's my very intentional person, as in you're intending on making this the best year yet. And I know how overwhelming and frustrating getting too much email can be, so lucky for you, I don't actually like to write. And I send email way less than I actually wish that I would. So there's no need to fear I will not be inundating your email inbox. In fact, except for brief periods of time, you'll be pretty underwhelmed by the amount of email you get from me. So I say a brief period of time as I'm getting ready to launch the next coaching group. You will probably see an increase in what I send out. And right before a launch is when I send out my best stuff. So now would be a great time to sign up. Also, while I am talking about my website, I want you to know that I have some more information about the ADHD Rewired Coaching and Accountability Group, but I'm going to share that a little bit later in this episode. What I want to do now is I want to share with you 7 things that you can do to make 2015 your best year yet. I'm also going to share with you how to set smarter goals, how to prioritize, and what is the one thing that might be more important than knowing what to do or even how to do it? As we are ending 2014 and getting ready to have a great year in 2015, what I would like you to do is do a brain dump. So when I start the year, or if I'm feeling like, I'm just not where I want to be, or I just have a lot of ideas going on in my head, I do brain dumps. And what brain dumps are, and they can look a lot of different ways, is get everything out of your head. Even the things that don't seem important to you right now, just get it out of your head. I was listening to a podcast earlier this week with Eric Fisher called Beyond the To-Do List, and he was actually interviewing David Allen from the Getting Things Done guy. And he said something that I thought was just awesome. What he said was, our brain is a place to create ideas, not the place to hold ideas or store ideas. And I think that's so important when we understand brain function and how our brain actually works. The creativity, the ideas happen in our brain, and that's what it's designed to do, but it's not meant to be a storage house. So I love to do mind mapping as a way to do my brain dumps, but however you want to do it. And one of the things that I would really encourage you to do is don't do this in one sitting. I would do this over a series of a week or two. Try to come back to this as often as you can over the next week or two. And you can do mind maps, you can do pictures, whatever it is. You can make a list if you want to, if you're a linear thinker, but I'm guessing a lot of you aren't. But whatever it is, get it out of your head. And over the next couple weeks, be ready to capture that idea that you have. And if you want to hear more information about kind of seeing what it is that you want to do and drawing out your plan and some goal setting, listen to episode 14 of this podcast. And I talk about how to see your vision. So when you start with that brain dump, now you're going to be able to actually see everything that is in your head. And yes, at first that might seem overwhelming, but stick with it, because think about how much more overwhelming it is to just be keeping all those ideas in your head. So what I'm going to help you do is figure out how to actually break down your goals, the things that are in your head, the wants, the must-dos, the things that are going to move your life forward. So the number 1 is starting with a brain dump. Number 2 is set your priorities. And there's a lot of different ways to set your priorities. And that can be, figuring out when you're going to do certain things. But, I mentioned in the beginning of the podcast about there's something that is more important than the what or the how, and that is the why. I've often said that my favorite question is why, which was a pain to my parents when I was growing up. But, that's just kind of how I am. I need to understand things. I need to have that motivational why. And there's a number of ways that you can kind of figure out what is your why, what is your purpose, why are the things that you're saying that you want to do this year actually important to you? What meaning does it have for you? So one way that you can start with why, and I'm sort of borrowing this from Michael Hyatt created a program on goal setting, but I've heard this from Stephen Covey. I've heard this from a number of different people who talk about goal setting and creating action plans. And when you're trying to figure out your why, I want you to really think about, what would you do if you knew from today that you had only 1 year to live? Now, I know that kind of sounds, kind of morbid and maybe a little sad and like, ugh. But when we think about the sense of urgency, it's amazing what we get done when we feel our time is limited. That's why often people with ADHD can get an amazing amount of work done in kind of that 11th hour, because our brain is able to do it. So what would you focus on if you truly only had a year to live? What if you only had 6 months to live? A month? A week? Okay, so besides the morning period, what would you focus on? And so I think that when you really think about that, you start thinking about the people in your lives. So I think that component of knowing what your why is really going to help with that priority. So how do you figure out what's important? One of the most common things that I hear from people with ADHD is that, well, everything feels important. So you can break it down into a number of different categories to help you prioritize what is important. Now, I think that it is critically important to start with you. What is important for you? Then that can be, with self-care, with personal growth, with your physical wellness, your mental wellness. What about leisure? So what is important for you? Because I think if you're not taking care of yourself, it's really important to take care of everything else. What's important for your family? And I think you could even break that down. If you have a partner, if you're married, if you have a significant other, what's important in that relationship? What about your kids? What about your parents, your extended family, your siblings? So think about what's important in those relationships. What about your friendships? What are your career goals? What do you want to do this year in relation to your career? Are you thinking about your financial goals? What do you want to do? So we have all these different domains in our life. It could be leisure. It could be community. It could be, even if you have spiritual goals, whatever they are, it's important to know how to kind of break these up into different categories. So the third part of this is to create your action plan by setting smart or smarter goals. And there's 2 episodes of my podcast earlier on, episode 4, which talks about setting goals, and episode 5, which talks about how to make a better to-do list. And these might be helpful in exploring some of these concepts in a little bit more in depth. So you may have heard of the SMART goal acronym, where it's specific, measurable, actionable or agreeable, realistic and time bound. So I kind of created my own, and it uses some of these concepts, but I think this is the Smarter Goals framework as it applies towards us with ADHD. So the S in Smarter stands for specific and see it. So also, as I mentioned before, episode 14 talks about seeing and drawing your plan. So be as specific as you can. I remember when I first heard this idea of begin with the end in mind, that sounded really good, but I didn't really know how to do it. And some of the tools that I talk about, some of the strategies that I talk about and help people with, really focus on how do you actually do that, so you know what it is that you're going to do. Because you can't problem solve in your head. You have to get it out of your head. So you have to see it, and you have to be very specific about what it is that you're actually trying to do. So that's the S. The M stands for motivationally measurable. So why motivationally measurable? Now, I look at this in a couple different ways. One, it's important to have measurable goals, and you can have things that are, as simple as, to increase something or to decrease something or to even maintain something. Okay, so that could be exercise, that could be sleep habits, that could be, whatever your goal is. And while I say motivationally measurable, because let's say you are not working out at all, and I'm talking about working out now because I have actually in the last few weeks fallen off of my workout routine because I got sick and had some asthma, and so I've fallen off of that, and so I'm very focused right now on getting back onto that. But if I were to think about exercise and think about, okay, I've fallen off my routine, so now what I want to do is exercise, every day for an hour a day. And let's say I haven't worked out for a while. That is not going to be motivationally measurable. That's going to be discouraging because it doesn't feel realistic. It doesn't feel like I can do it. So what's motivationally measurable is by saying, okay, for next week, I'm going to work out for 15 minutes one time. That's my goal. When I look at that, I say, okay, I can do that. The other piece of the motivation is to reward yourself some way. If it's something that you don't really want to do, to find an additional extrinsic motivator to help yourself feel good about those small benchmark goals that you're trying to achieve. So S is specific and see it. M is motivationally measurable. A is actionable. And this is where our to-do list comes in, because we should have the focus of our daily to-do list be related to our goals. Our yearly goals should be related to our quarterly to our monthly to our weekly, and our weekly to our daily. I know that might sound overwhelming, but a lot of the same strategies work on all levels of that time. So if you have a big goal, what is actionable today that's going to put a dent in that goal? So if I have a goal to create a podcast and create, say, 50 episodes of a podcast without taking a break, my actionable goal for today was to write out and plan what it was that I was going to talk about today on this episode, and then record the episode, then upload it to my computer. So all those kind of action steps. Okay. The R is realistic and rewarding. So this kind of goes into the idea of, what is it that we're already doing and is it realistic? So if I said that I want to write a book by next week, that would not be realistic. If I said I would like to write a book by next year, that might be realistic. And have it be rewarding and have rewards be a part of it. So the R stands for both realistic and rewards or rewarding. The T stands for time and time specific and time limited. So when you're setting goals and you're working on your tasks, you got to have time in mind. So tasks are things that typically are 30 minutes or less. Everything that's larger than that really is a small project. And it's important to break things down into the task level of our perspective. So be really specific about what you're going to do. If you're not sure, let's say I have a goal that says work on podcast. Okay, which is true. I need to work on my podcast. But that is not specific. So maybe I feel I have a lot of things to do about the podcast, so I'm not really sure. I would have an action step that would tell me, spend time planning my next step. So the actual action step is to plan my next action steps. So that's the T. The E, could we say these are smarter goals? The E is to evaluate how you're doing and exercise. Now, these are sort of not related, but I wanted to add exercise because, one, it's on my mind, and two, I know how important this is in helping us in all aspects of our life. Exercise is one of the best things to improve functioning when you have ADHD. It's one of the best things to improve brain function when you don't have ADHD. But if you do have ADHD, it's critically important because it helps that much more. So evaluate and exercise, then the R stands for rest, and then review to see how you're doing. So our reviews can be at the end of the week, the month, the quarter, and the year. And make sure you're giving yourself rest. Leave room for margin. That's one of the most important things that I know, and I'm really putting more effort to this year on working on, is creating more margin for myself. Because I didn't mention this on priorities, but one of the things that I've been really beginning to understand is that less is often more. when we think that we have like 10 projects that we have to get done this year, we're probably going to get done none of them. But if we have 3 big projects that we want to do this year and we focus for the first 3 or 4 months on one of them, you better believe that that project's going to get done. And then you look at that list and say, okay, what's next? And then by the end of the year, you get 3 or 4 of these big projects done because you focused really on one at a time. Okay, so we had 1 was start with a brain dump, 2 is set priorities, 3 was create your action plan and set smarter goals. Then 4 is to spend time and create a goal regarding your systems. I think this is one that is often overlooked. I think this is the one that, because we have ADHD and we can't go through life on autopilot, even though we often try, and the results are not good when we do, that we need to really be so intentional about our systems, because it's our systems that we create and maintain that make all this stuff happen. It's critically important to have a good to-do list, but your to-do list isn't going to do it for you. It's going to remind you what you need to do. It's going to help you see what you need to focus on. It's going to help you give you that framework for prioritizing what it is that you need to do. So spend time with your systems. Spend time tracking your time. Actually, on episode 3 of this podcast, I have an episode. It's all about time tracking and ways to track your time and tools for tracking time. Okay, number 5 is track a goal. If you've never done this, this can be a very interesting exercise for you. But what I really want you to do is create a star chart for yourself. And I'll put a link on my website on the show notes. There's a website that has star charts, and they have different characters. And here's, I think I mentioned this before on the podcast that I used this for tracking my something related to my sleep goal, and that's to get myself to get home on time a couple days a week. And I think my first one was a Scooby-Doo star chart, and then I think the one prior to that was maybe Superman. So the idea is you got to make it a little bit fun, all right? But track that goal. There's research that shows just the act of tracking a goal will improve the performance towards that goal. So, but you also don't need to overthink it. You can just create a grid that has 4, 5, 6 weeks and each day of the week over it, and make it a yes/no goal. I really encourage people, and when I am during my coaching group, I had the members of my group do this. And one of the things that I really wanted them to do is try to create a goal that was a yes/no goal, so they can easily identify whether or not they achieved it or not. The people in my group who didn't quite heed this advice are the ones that had the most difficulty with tracking it, because they would create this goal and then they would get to this point where they sort of did it, but not quite in the way that they wrote that they wanted to do. So now they're struggling with, should they give themselves credit for it or not? So when you're tracking a goal, yes, no. Okay, so that's number 5. Number 6 is the use of a calendar. And I'm just going to say, go listen to episode 9 if you haven't. Using a calendar is so important. And there are different kinds of calendars. I think it's really important to be able to see our time. So I like the use of a calendar that lets us see time in 15-minute increments. But we also have to have that ability to see more than just our day. We need to be able to see our week, our month, and so on. So, there's no right or wrong type of calendar to use. A lot of it depends on what your life is like, what the setup of your life is like. So, I think it's really important to be able to have enough room in your calendar to add all of the information you need. But, everyone has different things going on. So really, your system needs to only be as simple or as complex as your life is. So that's why there's no one ideal calendar or one ideal system. As far as apps go, I use Calendars 5, and I've been using that for quite a long time. And I use a combination of Google Calendar and iCal, and they all talk to each other. So you got to have that calendar, and put in your calendar the things that are coming up, the big things, the appointments, the the birthdays, the special events, the your quarterly reminder to review your goals. And these are the things that you need to have in your calendar. All right, so that was the first 6. I'm going to take a quick break and come back and tell you the 7th thing that is critically important to your goals. And with that, we'll be right back. Do you have some extra time during these holidays? Well, maybe you don't, but you could still enjoy a good book. Go to audibletrial.com/ADHD Rewired. That's audibletrial.com/ADHD Rewired. Audible is giving listeners of this program a free audiobook download. Just go to audibletrial.com/ADHD Rewired. May I suggest the audio version of Spark by John Rady or 7 Habits of the Highly Successful Person. These are both really good books, and I've actually listened to 7 Habits on audio several years ago, and it was fantastic. In fact, I think I might listen to it again pretty soon. That's audibletrial.com/ADHD Rewired. Supercharge your productivity with ADHD Rewired Coaching and Accountability version 2.0. Get coaching 5 days a week through a combination of live calls, group chats, and tailored weekly assignments where you receive recorded video feedback and coaching on your assignment from me. You can receive support from the time you wake up until the time you go to bed when you pair up with an accountability partner. Do you have trouble going to bed when you want to? Need help getting back on or staying on your workout routine? Maybe you would like to develop that habit of planning your day the night before. What if you knew you had someone waiting for your text or that photo that showed that you were in bed or at the gym, or that you've already planned your day by taking a picture of that plan? The ADHD Rewired Coaching and Accountability Group is the premier productivity group designed for those of us with ADHD who are ready to take action, to feel less overwhelmed, and to get more done. Get your ADHD rewired. Go to ADHDrewired.com. That's ADHDrewired.com and click on ADHD Rewired Coaching. That's ADHDrewired.com. Okay, welcome back. So we are talking about how to have the best year yet. It is the end of 2014. We are about to enter 2015. I am recording this on the 17th of December. This will come out on the 23rd of December. If you are celebrating Hanukkah, happy Hanukkah. If you were about to celebrate Christmas, have a Merry Christmas. And to everyone else, happy holidays, happy New Year. And if you have a birthday coming up, happy birthday. I have a birthday coming up. Okay. So in review, number 1, start with a brain dump. Number 2, set your priorities. Number 3, create an action plan using smarter goals. Number 4, create a goal for your systems. Number 5, track a goal. Number 6, use a calendar. And number 7, and this is what pieces it all together, and that's have accountability. That is where we piece together what we know to do and what we actually do. That's where ADHD, really is a unique disorder, because what it often looks like is that we know what to do, but we're not doing it. Adding accountability into your life with your goals can be one of the best things that you can do to really moving from good intentions to actions. So whether that might be a friend, whether that is a coach or a therapist that you're working with, whether that's even the ADHD Rewired Facebook community group, that's another place where you can get accountability. People who are kind of in this together, and we know the struggles that are common with ADHD, but that want to do better and are committed to being more productive and achieving success and are committed to really wanting to take their life to where they know that it can be. So if you've been listening for a while, you know that I'm getting ready to launch the next ADHD Rewired coaching and accountability group. So this is honestly why I'm doing this episode right now. So you could take this episode, and if you can take this information and run with it on your own, that's awesome. That is amazing, and I want to congratulate you. But if you are anything like me and have all these really good ideas and good intentions, but know that without some of that extra support, it can really be hard to move forward with that. If you like what you are hearing right now and would like to be part of a group of people who are really committed and motivated to supporting each other and moving forward on their goals, to maybe you need help in creating some of your goals and creating clarity on some of your goals, I really want to encourage you to sign up for the next coaching group. So what you can do right now is, as soon as I finish recording this episode, I'm going to my online scheduling page and I'm going to set up the option for you to have a phone call with me or a Skype call, whatever works best for you. So you're going to go to my website, erictivers.com/podcast. And when you see the coaching group icon, which you'll see when you get there, there's going to be an option to schedule a free consultation with me. If you are serious and thinking about being a part of this group and you have questions, I want to set up a time to talk with you, because we are getting close to that time where we're going to be launching, and then it's going to be filled up before you know it. I mean, it's when I did this last time, I did say that, and in the back of my mind, there was a fear of, okay, so I'm saying this is going to sell out, but will that actually happen? And it did. It actually oversold it out. So, and I would say that the group was extraordinarily successful. Last group was the first one that I did. There were certainly kinks in the group, and I worked out those kinks. So what I'm really excited to let you know too is that next week I'm actually going to be interviewing somebody that was in the group who wants to be on the podcast to share a goal that they have. Talk about accountability, because what we will do is have that guest back and check in to see how they are doing. So I'm really excited to bring you that. I haven't even recorded that conversation yet, but I did talk with her today, and we are going to be moving forward with that. So I'm getting to the point where I'm beginning to ramble. I probably should figure out some way to add stopping is the second hardest part, because we know that starting is the hardest part. So go to my website, look at the notes for this. Guys, I hope that 2014 was a successful year for you. If you want 2015 to be an even more productive, more successful year for yourself, sign up for the coaching group, or at least look into it, because I promise you, this is an investment in your future. This is an investment in you, in your business, in your family, whatever your top priorities are. This is a group for you. Happy holidays. Thank you for listening, and we'll be back next week. Well, ADHD Rewired community, you just listened to another episode of ADHD Rewired. Just in case you forgot what you just did. I hope you found this episode valuable as you start thinking about 2015. Yes, we have ADHD and we can plan ahead. Sometimes we just need the right information, tools, and support. Speaking of planning ahead, the launch of the ADHD Rewired Coaching and Accountability Group version 2.0 is just around the corner. If you are interested in becoming part of this group, go to my website, adhdrewired.com. That's www.adhdrewired.com to schedule your initial screening call. Watch your email inbox for information about my upcoming webinars on productivity and apps. The first one is scheduled for Tuesday, December 30th at 1 p.m. Central Time. And if you're thinking about signing up for the Rewired Coaching and Accountability Group, you definitely don't want to miss this one, because I'll be offering exclusive access to pre-launch prices. Plus, I'm going to be there to answer your questions. To get your invitation to this free pre-launch webinar, I just need your email. You can sign up for my newsletter at my website, ADHDrewired.com, or by texting Tivers to 22828. That's TIVERS to the number 22828. That's all for now. Happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, and I wish you all a great end of 2014. Until next time.